Hey guys, my guest tonight, Stephen Bassett, is going to be talking about UFO disclosure and will the government ever come clean? Be right back. Grab your popcorn and snacks. Find a comfy spot, take a seat or lie down, and let me transport you to a place of fantasy, ghost stories, ancient legends, odd creatures, alien encounters, and other magical topics. You may even decide to join the conversation. From faraway lands to your own backyard, with a small dash of pixie dust. Turn out the lights and open your minds. The journey is about to begin. Hey guys, welcome to the show. My name is Charlotte. I'm going to be your host for the next hour. I'm also the owner of the California Haunts Paranormal Investigation Team based out of Sacramento, California. We are 45 strong up and down the state, which means if you do have a paranormal problem or you think you have one, we can help you out. It might take us a bit to get to you, but we will get to you. But in that case, I'm getting lost already. In that case, we do have psychics and mediums on staff who can help you via phone call, and in most cases, if it is paranormal, they can calm things down a bit before we get out there, until we get out there. But we will get out there. Like I say, California is a big state, and it might take us a couple days. Anyway, if you're watching from Facebook, and a lot of you are tonight, please be sure to follow if you haven't done so already. We're always looking for followers, and be sure to send me a thumbs up, a happy face, one of those happy hearts. Because the more you guys do that, the more you participate in the chat room, the higher up in what we call the FYP computer system for Facebook takes us, and that means they distribute us out to more people. If you're at home watching this with other people in the house, and maybe you think they might be interested in the show, tell them to come on over and keep an eye on it and take a look at the show. Same thing with YouTube. YouTube works the same way. If you haven't subscribed yet, please be sure to subscribe. We're looking to fill ourselves up with subscribers, to hit that magic 1,000 mark of subscribers. And the same thing, if you like what you hear, leave us a thumbs up, a happy face, and all that good stuff. And also, I can't believe it. I even reset my my machine. And the internet's being horrible tonight again. Lots of news going on. Back to YouTube. Leave me those smiles, those happy faces, those hearts, and we will. That'll put us up at the high in the FYP, and do comment in the chat room. Twitch works the same way. TikTok works the same way. It's all about getting those likes. It's all about getting those likes. Geez, the internet's really unstable tonight, so I'm going to let you guys know if it does go down. I will be back on my cell phone, but you're going to have to wait and just leave everything open. My guest tonight, Stephen Bassett, hasn't come in yet, so I don't know if because he did confirm, so I don't know if he's having trouble getting into the system or not. So in the meantime, I guess we'll just sit here and have a ghost chit-chat, kind of like we did Friday when I was talking about dark forces and stuff like that. So let me get this stuff powered up here. I have emailed him and haven't got anything back from him, so maybe something did come up in his neck of the woods. Hello. Okay, so this may be a different show than what I planned tonight. If Stephen doesn't come in, we will talk about ghostly things. Straight from the files of the California Haunts Paranormal Investigation Team out of Sacramento. We've been ghost hunting for almost 18 years. We have a lot of experience under our belt, and I have the same team. I have at least a handful of team members that I started out with 18 years ago. So it makes it kind of fun, when you have people. It's kind of like when you watch Star Trek and all the crew of the Enterprise is so they get it. What Captain Picard wants. All he has to do is look over at a corner, or Captain Kirk even. You look at them with a certain view with certain things going on, and they know exactly what to do. And with my 5 core members that I have on my team, that's what happens is that they know exactly what to do. I just have to take a look or say, look, this is happening, and they'll say, well, why don't we do this? Perfect, that's what I want. Let's go. And that's exactly what happens. What happens on my team when we go out and investigate. So I guess something came up from Mr. Bassett. So we'll just sit tight here and we'll talk ghosts. In fact, I was looking through some old archive stuff because I have everything on file, and I've been going back through the files to put them in better order. We keep files, believe it or not, of all the cases that we go to, all the residential cases and business cases that we go to. And what that does is that helps us if we come across a case that we think has something similar happen that we may have done before. Before that helps us. So I'm able to go to the file and go, hey, here's a case we did back in 2000. Okay, here's a case we did back in 2000, and this is what happened, and this is similarly going on. So it kind of gives a starting point to where to go in on these cases, that we have. So it's really helpful, and it's like anything else. It's like, ghost hunters. Unfortunately, the story, the legend is with ghost hunters is that computers. We go through laptops like every 2 years because we've got so much data coming in, whether it's video, whether it's audio. We're always changing out our laptops, no matter what. I mean, I've been through so many laptops. It's just recently, knock on wood, doing the radio show, that this laptop here has gone 2 years. It's just for this show. I have another laptop that only lasted like 6 months, and I was doing ghost hunting on it. So they don't last very long at all because, again, you're always throwing a lot of data on there to go over stuff. Well, just like this, I have a big backup drive for this show because it just takes up so much. The video itself takes up so much data. The photos and everything else takes up so much data. Anyhow, I'll give him a few more minutes, and then we'll just start talking about ghosts, ghosts in general. And if you guys have any questions to ask me about certain things that may be going on, around you, let me know. And I'm pretty sharp with this stuff. Like I said, I've been doing it for 19 years, so or 18 years rather, and I'm pretty sharp with doing this stuff. So unfortunately, yeah, he did confirm too. Okay. All right, so I thought, we talked about Friday, because Nancy had the night off. We were talking about demons and angry ghosts and things like that, and maybe we should just kind of continue with that theme. Nancy, has that theory about this that a lot of what other guys perceive as demons are guys that have got ghosts that have gone insane. And what she means by insane, there's always the stories you get of where we go after we die. What areas do we go to? Do we go in the light? If we were bad or something else, are we in limbo, or do we go down to, as one of the videos I saw for the 3 Southern Cats, the red light place? I don't know. I haven't died yet, so I have no clue. I can only go by. Okay, well, here we go. Steven is here, and we're going to shift back in. And let's bring him in. And what we're going to be talking about today is UFO disclosure. And it's going to be an interesting talk because I have personal feelings about it in that I don't think the United States is going to, A, tell us everything that's been going on, and B, I think if they do, they're going to candy coat it to a point where people don't panic, because I think it's the thing where they think everybody's going to panic. But the main question that everybody has on, the main question I have, is are they actually going to tell us anything at all? Because there's a lot of embargoes going on information. I mean, we can't be the only ones, when we're walking outside with our dogs and our spouses, we can't be the only ones who see things in the skies, okay? Like the recent military pilots and all that. That's what I mean. Everybody's seeing this stuff. There has to be something to it. So my guest tonight, Stephen Bassett, he's going to talk about that. And he has a lot of really cool information about this, and I think you guys are going to find this fascinating tonight. So let me bring him in. Maybe.
Maybe.
Yeah.
There we go.
How you doing?
I'm okay. A little computer problem there. I think my computer was dying, and I'm afraid I knew this might happen. I'm gonna have to get another one, but I beat the hell out of it. Also, I'm on the road in New Mexico, looking into some pretty amazing things. So the production values tonight are not of the highest quality.
That's okay.
Now I got this weird light. It's got this. It's just this yellow light. Weird stuff.
I'm sure for you doing the kind of work you do, and it's similar to the work I do in that, like I was telling them before you came on, paranormal investigators go through computers like every 2 years.
Yeah, because you're taking them out in the field, you're dropping them in the ground, you're stepping on them. I'm sticking them in the bag in my anyway, this baby. But I have a supporter that's going to get me a new laptop, and I'm going to hopefully get that as soon as I get back. So I heard what you said. I need to help. Let me help. Okay, folks.
Okay. Here we go.
Let's make a few points. One, there has been a huge amount of coverage of this issue the last 7 years. I think everybody agrees to that.
Mm-hmm.
Unprecedented amount of media coverage, both on television and in print and so forth. The stigma on the issue is practically gone. People are using UFO even without concern. Mm-hmm. UAP is available for those that are twitchy, but UFO is back and it's cool. And there's very few skeptic articles in the major print. There's some skeptics on Twitter because, well, they just don't know what else to do with themselves. So we know about that. We know there's been 4 tranches of legislation, unprecedented. The last one could have been absolutely through the roof, but there was some pushback. Fine. They modified it, reduced it back, but we still got the 4th piece of legislation. And then things have slowed down. I'm not seeing so many articles. And of course, the moment that happens, everybody is thinking, okay, here we go again. Again. This is not 1969. It ain't 1953. No. We way past that. What is going on now is a tremendous amount behind the scenes that is not in the public eye. All right. Which is, I get it. And so if you're not seeing anything, you get a little disillusioned. But in fact, all kinds of things are happening in Washington, D.C., and kinds of things are happening in Los Angeles. Content of various levels is in various degrees of production. More is coming. You're going to be seeing unprecedented levels of nonfiction, documentary-type content of the UAP issue, and it's not going to be debunking it. And that's coming out from the highest level of Hollywood. We've already seen 2 recent series from Amber Entertainment and Bad Robot Productions. It doesn't get any bigger than that. And they have second seasons of that coming. In addition, well, that's a lot. Now in Washington, I am very much privy to that, and there is a lot going on behind the scenes. There is briefings happening all the time. There's interactions between various committees. There are members of Congress speaking out directly. We had that legislation, and in addition to all of that, you've got major organizations who are forming because they know disclosure is coming. They're not forming to be another MUFON or come up with some more proof that there's ETs here. We already know there's ETs here. The government knows. The most notable of these are the Soul Foundation, which is chaired and started up by Gary Nolan, the Nobel Prize nominee. This out of Stanford, and they're filled up with some of the highest tech people, tremendous backgrounds and so forth in science and tech, and they're coming together to address the post-disclosure world. In other words, we want to address the issues of technology and advise the government and whatever, right? Because we're not just going to allow the technology to remain in the domain of private contractors once the confirmation of the ET presence is out there. And it's not going to. All right. So there's that. The New Paradigm Institute, Danny Sheehan's new think tank, which he's been in 20 years in the making and couldn't get it going because the climate wasn't right. He now has some decent funding. He's hired a number of staff. He has a Washington office open. They have a substantial website and they put a lot of their initial money into the tech of the website so they can do really good projects. And so the New Paradigm Institute eventually is going to have millions and millions of dollars, and it's going to be addressing the post-disclosure world. Okay. Meanwhile, MUFON is aggressively pursuing the issue on the Hill. It has a lobbying firm that it's paying a lot of money to. There's docs in the works. MUFON TV is thriving. That's happening. And there are other lobbyists that are doing their thing. SCU, scientific. SCU is the. Forgive me, but it's SCU, pretty big, important operation. That is developing, and there are other organizations coming together because it's game time. So all I can say, folks, is that past is not prologue. We're going to get disclosure. We should get it early this year because it would be very awkward and difficult, in a lot of ways to hold it later this year as the election is closer. There's also some very unpleasant things going on in the world. We need to make a move like this in order to shift the focus and develop some new way of thinking, worldview change, paradigm shift change, all that. So early this year, there is no reason we can't have a hearing in front of the Senate Intel Committee. Mark Warner can call it anytime he wants to. Nobody can stop it. Not the Pope, not the Supreme Court, not the White House, not other members of Congress. He is the chair of that committee. He can call a hearing. The witnesses are ready to testify under oath. It's all set. They just have to pull the trigger. And I'm doing what I can. Danny's doing what he can, and there's others that are continuing to make the case to get this done. So it could happen at any moment. When we get disclosure, this may shock you, but the disclosure of the ET presence will be the turning point in which we start to enter into an era of truth telling. Now, some people will say, I beg your pardon, governments have lost their moral authority. They lie all the time. We don't trust them anymore. They're dangerous, whatever. And so why on earth would you expect that to happen? And it's not complicated. Talking about the democracies now, not the authoritarian states. Most of these governments are filled with good people. They want to do good work. They want to help help their country, and they don't like to lie. Unfortunately, there's a lot of dysfunction and lying going on, and it usually is around national security stuff, war, and what have you. People have figured this out. They know they're lying, and it's very, very destructive. Confirming the extraterrestrial presence, ending the biggest lie, I think, in human history, that is basically 77 years old this year, will be a huge turn in the right direction. And so they're going to confirm the ET presence, and they're going to quickly understand that, particularly once they get a great deal of appreciation and recognition for doing this, and everybody's quite pleased about it, and then we enter the post-disclosure world era, in which now everybody wants to know everything about this issue as soon as possible, and the government is going to tell us what it can, when it can, all right, in an orderly, responsible way. I never expected anything else. And when they do that, when we go to the post-disclosure world and the press is cramming into every one of the briefing rooms and every appropriate institution in D.C. and in other countries as well, because the formal acknowledgement of ET presence will go worldwide within a week or less, meaning every head of state that matters is going to confirm it. Whether or not they bring evidence out doesn't matter. There's plenty of that. So they're going to discover that they're going to want to tell us what we want to know, and they want to do it in an orderly way. The bill that was recently submitted that was not passed as it was written had the incomplete disclosure platform in it, the disclosure plan called UAP disclosure plan, a controlled disclosure plan, which is the whole thing, right? Everything, okay? Transparent, in the open, exactly how it was going to be done. It would start right away and then unfold over multiple years, okay? But eventually everything would come out. It was all there. It also included eminent domain on the ET tech, which was more than the defense contractors could handle. And so they put in a big pushback, and they got the bill reduced down to a basic bill and eliminated most of the powers. But of course, everybody saw it happen, right? Everybody knew it was going on. And so Chuck Schumer says, we want eminent domain over that ET tech that Grush said we had, which confirms that we have ET tech. And then the defense contractors said, no, we don't want you to have eminent domain. We want to keep that tech to ourselves, which confirms we have ET tech. There's already anybody in Washington that hasn't confirmed we have ET tech. So that's where things are. So once we get into that era, the questions are going to come hard and fast. And they're going to have the entire world pretty much focused right on them, every briefing, every question session, with their social media already up and ready to go, able to Google and search anything they say to see if it's valid. They're going to have to tell the truth, and they're going to want to, and they will. And so we're going to start getting truths. And we'll know they're truths because they're going to be very tough answers to very difficult questions that are not really in their best interest. And people are going to be going, that's good. I like that. And they're going to be going, ooh, people like that. And then they're going to tell more truth. And the odd person will try to pull a fast one, and he'll get ground up by the social media in a couple of hours and go, ooh, that was a mistake. And thus begins what I call the great era of truth telling. Now, will it be happening in China or Russia? No, probably not. It'll come a little bit later, but eventually it'll catch up with it. But in certainly the Western world that we are so comfortable with, and I'll include South America, Central America as well, without question. Africa is limited in terms of its engagement, but in general, most of the major countries, you're going to get nothing but truth pouring out. Now, they may say that we can't tell you about that now, but we will do so later. That is on hold. But what they will say will be the truth. And as people start to get comfortable with that, and as the governments get comfortable with that, they're going to start telling the truth about a lot of other things. And the net result of that is more trust in government, less partisanship, more getting things done, more fixing things. And we may start to see an upward curve of improvement of the condition of human beings, the status of nations, and perhaps even the status of the biosphere. Now, that seems like a lot. It is. But the end of the truth embargo is the most profound event in human history and the biggest paradigm shift in history. It is a big enough lever, as Archimedes referred to once, to move the world. It's long enough to do that. And so those that are still very not sanguine about it, still expecting the same old, I get it. But that's not what's coming. All right? Barring some dramatic shift. And I'll tell you, if a nuclear event happens anywhere, all this is going to be tabled. So just count on that. All right? If there's some catastrophic political thing that happens, I don't know, assassination, blowing up a building, something really draconian like that happens, this is going to hold off. But barring that, right now, though we do have a lot of very big hotspots in the world, there is no significant barrier to Warner bringing in about 20 witnesses to testify before 100, 200 million people on camera, transparently, to the Senate Intel Committee, thus making it quite easy for the president to step forward and say we're not lying. So that's where things are right now.
Very interesting. And, I've noticed, like on social media sites, this keeps popping up, this new machine they have for medical use, where you can just walk into the booth and the thing just does a scan on you.
Yeah.
And see, that's what makes me wonder about, like you say, already we've got this technology, but the public doesn't realize we have this technology.
Look, there's X amount of technology that is within private hands classified that could, wait a minute, my battery's going bad because I'm not plugged into a decent plug. Let me fix that. Won't take long.
Go ahead, no problem. This is an interesting talk. I mean, he's right. And if you look around yourself, you can see, like I said, about this thing that can scan your body. There's stuff out there already that's come out the last year that I kind of thought was more like was more Star Trek-y. I mean, that's what that is. Star Trek, they lay you on the table, kind of like an MRI, and scan your whole body. But this isn't even an MRI. Wouldn't this be cool to have this? I mean, how many of us just hate being shoved into that MRI tube? I mean, that's obnoxious. When you could just walk into something the size of a small bathroom and get scanned, and they could tell stuff that's wrong with you. I mean, it's a fantastic machine. And this is how fast this technology comes. And you look at stuff like microwaves and things like that, and there I am. I'm big now. Haha. You see more of me than you want to. But you look at stuff like microwave ovens and different things like that, and sure enough, the technology is there, and it had to come from somewhere. So I agree with him, but as far as that goes, we're going to see more and more of these technological advances. Absolutely. And what I want to ask him when he gets back online too, I want to ask him what the slowdown's been as far as releasing this stuff. Like he says, there's all these people working on this now. Why couldn't they have come around earlier and started telling us about this technology? That's what I'm wondering about, or telling us about these ETs or whatever. That's where my thing is with this. But it's interesting because a lot of this, like he says, a lot of this technology you're seeing in the military, probably came from the ETs, and I'm talking about skunk works. You've got the SR-71 planes like the U-2 and the SR-71 Blackbird and the stealth fighter and all this stuff, and that stealth technology, which they came up with in the 60s. Somehow they came up with all that and were able to make it work. So this technology is coming from somewhere. The Harrier jump jet. Right? For you guys that don't know what a Harrier jump jet is, that is the jet that they are able to, instead of using a runway, they are able to take off and land with in one spot. Okay, let me bring him back on. Okay, he's still muted. Camera's not on yet. Yellow light. But anyway, yeah.
Okay, got that. And
Yes.
got this. Camera should be. No, it's not.
There you go. Close enough.
Well, no, I get a camera. I get the camera. Where's the camera? Why can't I get a camera? Should be right here.
You have a lovely photo. It's all good.
Yeah. Where's my it should be right here. What's the problem? I'm on the show. The camera's working. I have this. Okay. All right. Let me go here. Let me see. Oh, start cam. There it is. Okay, there we go. Okay.
You're yellow.
Well, that's so far so whatever.
Close enough for government work. All right, let us continue. I was just mentioning, all this disclosure stuff, like you're talking about coming out.
Yeah.
What's taking so long for it to get to this point?
That's like asking, why did it take 85 years to get the Civil Rights Act? Okay. Why did it take 50 years to finally convince the British to leave India? Mm-hmm. Major change, activist change, is not easy. Okay. And you've got the government that is basically saying that we don't want to do this. It's in our interest. The government has the power, and so you have to convince the government to do something it doesn't want to do. Mm-hmm. I get that. All right, and so it's not easy, and so it has taken 77 years to get to a point where the U.S. government or any government was willing to confirm to us the extraterrestrial presence. Mm-hmm. It is that simple. All right. Mm-hmm. Okay. Again, I don't know what's happened here. My camera's just stopped working, and I have no idea why. Now, the truth embargo was maintained for national security reasons, and then eventually it was maintained because they were too embarrassed to end it. And so it has had a very long lifetime, 77 years. But ultimately, it's broken down. It's broken down because of all the research that was done, the witnesses that have come forward, the documentaries that were produced, books written. And then it really started getting hammered when you had the development of the internet in the late 90s, followed by social media, 2003, 2006, and then followed by the podcast revolution and more social media, including TikTok and so forth. And so you have billions of people able to communicate at will, spread information at will, even misinformation. And so the idea that you could now continue to keep secret a phenomena that everybody's seeing every day somewhere in the world was, of course, ridiculous. And so eventually the government, to one degree or another, realized that they had to finally make a move. And that move, the final move, started on October 11th of 2017, when 10 people, formerly from the military intelligence complex, came forward and said, we're going to set up an organization. We're going to be doing research. We're going to be creating content. And so forth. And that was pretty notable because of the people's background and resumes. And then several of those people delivered extraordinary information to the New York Times, and thus the New York Times articles of December 16, 17 were published with the Tic Tacs and the gun camera footage and the ATIP program, OSAP program, the READ and the funding and everything else. And that was the trigger that basically set off the final act of this play, which is now about 7 years in. It took longer than expected because our politics kind of went off the rails, and it became difficult to do much of anything. But now we are again closing in. So that's what it took. Clearly, all the wars that have happened since World War II, Korean War, Iraq War, Vietnam War, wars in the Middle East, Afghanistan, Libya, all these wars have made it very difficult to get national security reform.
Mm-hmm.
Plenty that's needed, but what we wanted was just to end the truth embargo, which is a form of reform. All of those wars didn't help. Obviously, the continued nuclear standoff, the nuclear Cold War, which is still going on, that didn't help. And so we made it much harder than it needed to be. And hopefully we haven't waited too long.
Absolutely. And when you talk about the technology that the military is already using, what do you suspect it is? Because while you were off camera, I actually mentioned like the SR-71 Blackbird, all that stealth technology that they came up with in the 60s. Could that be part of the technology that they have gotten?
Well, we don't know. We do not know what, if any, technology has emerged from the legacy programs dealing with crash vehicles. And if any has come out, they're not going to tell us anyway, right? You know what I'm saying?
Right.
They're not going to tell us. But it's possible that some things have come out. Okay, great. Okay, but I had it almost, and then it went away again. Come on. Oh, exit full screen. All right, no.
There you are. Right on. Okay, let's do this.
Well, I had my camera back on, and then it didn't come up. Hang on, I'm bringing the camera up. My camera is back on. If you want to turn it on your end.
I'm going to do that. Yes, I see you. Here we go.
Okay.
And
okay.
We're back.
So,
okay.
They've had to make decisions about that tech, and all we know is they've had 77 years and multiple vehicles to study. There's rumors they got some intact.
I think his battery just went down. It's going to be one of those days. It really is. Murphy's Law. So, okay. So let me click him off and try and bring him back up here. Hang on a second. Let's just do this. Okay, let me try again. Yep, he's disappeared. This is just one of those shows. A lot of technology came from the Roswell. I agree with that. They were able to pull a lot of technology off that crash landing at Roswell. Off that. Well, I don't know if it's my internet or it's his internet. It's probably his computer because his battery was running out. So, okay, we'll just continue. We will plow on regardless. But yeah, I agree with you with that. A lot of technology came from Roswell, and there's that alleged. There we go. He's off. He'll be back. That's him. There's that alleged agreement that they made with Eisenhower as well. And I mean, there's people that don't think he made. There's people out there. In fact, the gentleman we're going to have on tomorrow night talks about about that agreement not even existing. That there wasn't a pact made. But I believe there was an agreement made, and that's how we advanced so quickly. Because it seemed like we were in the 1950s. We had certain stuff going on, but we weren't really, that technological advanced, even though it seemed like it for the times. But then there was a big surge. You had that big surge from the 1950s on, and all of a sudden you had microwaves and our cell phones came into play, and and the MRI machines and all this stuff came into play. And that's when I believe that there was that surge. Okay. Wait for him to come back in. We had that surge of technology that came up, and that's when I believe, that supposed that alleged meeting with Eisenhower came into play. That whatever agreement they made to bring that into technology. Let me bring him back in.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yeah, it's a Murphy's Law kind of night.
Good. All right, we're back. I heard you.
Yeah.
Look. Here's the deal.
Okay.
We have had no other choice but to speculate ourselves to death for these last 77 years, right? Mm-hmm. The government's classified everything. They've got it well secured. They've got deep underground bases, massive classification, USAP programs. And so we've just speculated. And there's all these rumors out there about we have this and we have that. Corso kind of stirred the pot when he put out his book with Bill Burns the day after Roswell, in which he talked about some tech being delivered to the foreign tech desk, and with the idea of seeding it into some of our companies to give them a little advantage. All right. Mm-hmm. I think that probably some of that was done. But remember, this is well back, right? And
Right.
because he didn't go into detail, and we don't have the records of how that went, we have no idea to what extent our technological curves were made steeper by this. But I don't think it was as much as we thought. I think that it was an effort to do that, but I don't think it was that significant, to be honest with you. We were on a very substantial tech curve even without ETs. There was no question. We cracked the fundamental issue of relativity and quantum mechanics before Roswell. All right, we invented the bombs and dropped them before Roswell, and so I encourage people to back away from this and take a base position like this. One, we know they have crash vehicles. We know those vehicles are enigmatic. We know that clearly they have a power system. Is it and a power system is almost certainly something that we don't have. How great is it? Don't know, right? Because, and this is where it gets kind of complicated. If they have an anti-gravity system that negates gravity, and it doesn't require a lot of energy to do that, and then you need energy to move about whatever method you want. But once you've negated gravity, you don't need a lot of energy to move something around. Now, do you? It weighs nothing, doesn't it?
That's true.
The energy systems of the craft may have been overrated these years, but on the other hand, they could be quite extraordinary. And so we know they have the crash. We know they have dead ETs. We know they had a live ET or two for a while. As far as the meeting with Eisenhower, not proven. The most likely thing that happened there, if he in fact did something other than what was on his calendar when he made that trip west, it was most likely to see a dead body, right? I don't think I don't think that that ET was the Roswell ET was still alive. If it was, then he might have been taken to meet the ET. But people have blown that up to, oh, we had a big meeting with ETs. They cut deals, treaties, made swaps, gave each other presents. We don't know that. We don't know that at all. And so I'm telling people, back down here. Now, here's another way to look at it. Any significant improvement in our energy capability, whether it's in terms of the cost of moving electrons around or the ability to do it without polluting the air, will be a very important help to us, no question about it. Anti-gravitic drive is a little more narrowly focused. It just means you can move around without having to use a propulsion system, traditional propulsion system. But actually, anti-gravitic drive is an extraordinary tech that if we could put it into public use, and there is decent evidence that we have human anti-gravitic craft, but they are not available for our use. But if we could put those into public use, the things they could do are quite amazing. And I'll give you just two examples. And by say amazing, they would have enormous impact on our problems, the current problems we're dealing with. And let's take one. The global warming weather change issue is driving us nuts. One, because it's happening. Two, because it's been politicized. Three, because nobody studies science in school anymore. Hell, in fact, nobody studies hardly anything anymore. And so the situation regarding the weather has been corrupted, and we're not addressing it. And if we did address it properly, we would probably find out that there's nothing we can do about it. Now, this is considered apostasy. But I'm going to make a simple statement here that for hundreds of millions of years, we have had large cycle weather changes and short cycle weather changes, period. We've had them, right? And there were no humans, all right? And when we go through a real cold period, the ice glaciers come all the way down past Washington, D.C. into North Carolina, right? And that's true all the way around the world. And from the bottom, meaning that any civilization would be toast, okay? And there wasn't anything to be done. And then as things warm up, they start to retreat, and then you have a lot of water, you have a lot of melt up there on those glaciers, and at some point it gets to the point and an ice dam will break, and trillions of gallons of water would come pouring down from Canada, racing across the United States, pulling up boulders and literally scouring out huge canyons. Okay, I mean that is the way it happens. All right, and then when we get a warm period, okay, greater portions of the planet are underwater. Right, the weather changes dramatically with that much heat and that much water. You're talking about hurricanes category 7, massive rainstorms, things like that. Any civilization going through one of those is toast. Okay, and so we are in a short-term cycle that is essentially a warming trend, and we think we can stop it by recycling our cans and plastic. No, it's a joke. I mean, it's a good thought. It eliminates a little pollution in more of a local sense. It creates some jobs, it creates some economy, but the idea that it is significantly addressing the global warming issue, no, not at all. It's in that sense worthless. All right, and we're putting catalytic converters on cars and things like that, and we're doing our best to try to get emissions down while the population moves from 2 billion to 4 billion to 6 billion to 8 billion on its way to 10 billion. And so we have no chance using our current tech to prevent all of the consequences of global warming that the environmentalists say are coming, but think that somehow we can avoid, no matter how much money we spend, which is irritating, because some people understand this and they realize you're going to spend all this money, but you're not going to get any results. Let's just use that money to enjoy our life while everything warms up. Okay. However, and this is so cool, right? What if we had anti-gravitic tech, and we may have had anti-gravitic tech for some decades, but let's say that tomorrow we have anti-gravitic tech and we're able to put the anti-gravitic craft into orbit in our airspace as well as into our near space. Here's what we could do that we cannot do now. Absolutely cannot do it now. You build huge panels, right, of the finest materials, light but strong. They have the ability to be manipulated. Right? Huge panels. They don't have to be huge, but they're huge. And now using your anti-gravitic craft, you very economically and quickly start taking these panels up into orbit. And then you start to assemble them in what is called a sun-synchronous orbit. Now, what is that? That is something that is orbiting the Earth in such a way that as the Earth moves around the sun in that elliptical orbit, that thing that you've synchronized is always between the sun and the Earth. Right? It's a little trickier than having a synchronous orbit around the Earth where something is parked over a particular spot. That's pretty easy because the Earth is moving. But our orbit is simple. And so now you've got a couple thousand of these panels, whatever the hell, up there, and they are assembled and they are manipulatable. And here's what you do. If the planet is getting too warm, you manipulate these panels so that they reflect a certain percentage of the sun's energy back away from the Earth, and thus cools the planet down. It's that simple.
Nice.
And if we go into a cold phase before the glaciers get down to New York, you take the panels and you then manipulate them so that they are now orchestrated to reflect additional energy on the Earth, like we do with sunscreen at the beach, okay, or sun shields.
Right.
Anti-gravitic drive would allow us to truly and inexpensively temperature control the planet to avoid those kind of dramatic shifts, barring something profound. Like if we have a super volcano go off, it's going to put up a massive blanket of sun-blocking material, and that's going to be, but it's going to be a somewhat short-term problem, and we can get some benefit from that sun-synchronous array. This is simple, right? But without anti-gravitic drive, you can't do it. Okay, so if they had anti-gravitic drive for 50 years, that's 50 years we could have been putting those damn panels up there and not driving ourselves crazy, spending gazillions of dollars to somehow, buy carbon tax or whatever the hell we're doing. Not now, again. So there's that. Now, here's the other thing that I love. All right, because we rely on nuclear power, and we also have to make lots of material for our fine nuclear weapons. The Earth is loaded with nuclear waste, and there's nothing we can do about it.
Right.
Try nothing. We thought we would store it in Yucca Mountain, at least in the West, we're going to store it all in Yucca Mountain, and nobody would agree to have the stuff transmitted there. And the Indians got upset. Don't blame them. They didn't want 1 billion pounds of nuclear waste on their reservation. Okay, I can appreciate that. And so nothing has happened. These massive piles of nuclear waste are underground or in drums, some above ground, just and leaking and polluting the environment. And of course, if somebody were to get, I don't know, a couple 100 pounds of C4 into one of these facilities and send it off, probably 2 or 3 states of the United States would be radioactive, and everybody would have to move out. Now, what to do about that? Actually, it's a simple solution. If you have anti-gravitic technology, what you do, think of your container ships, right? They bring in the stuff in the container, you go down, grab the container, pick it up, put it over, and you unload it. Okay. All right. So imagine an anti-gravitic craft ship that has a container on it, like the ships do.
Right.
And you fill that container up with nuclear waste. And then you very easily take it up into orbit, much more safely than you would do using a chemical rocket. Trust me. I'm not saying something could go wrong. I'm simply saying that it's much safer and faster. You take it up into orbit, but you got a rocket attached to it. You ignite the rocket and send it into the sun, which can handle it quite well. And then you go back and fill up more containers until you eliminate all of the nuclear waste on the planet easily and cheaply. That we can do with anti-gravitic technology. Without it, we can't do anything. Now, that's just 2 of the benefits of anti-gravitics, and we know that anti-gravitics are real, and almost certainly, at least the U.S., if not other countries, have actually figured it out. And so they're going to have some tough questions about, why have you been sitting on that tech when my community fills up with radioactive waste, when that's probably the answer to that problem? And they're going to say national security, and blubber. And then we're going to say, would you just go away and bring somebody up here that can talk intelligently about this? So that's 2 things. Now, on the energy side, what can I say? If the energy system itself is understandable, or if the scientific principles embedded in those craft allow our scientists, the government scientists and the defense contractor scientists, to actually develop some more advanced theories with respect to aspects of physics, including the nature of energy. Either way, we might be able to have a breakthrough there that allows us electrons from point A to point B for less cost. And by the way, anybody that tells you that the world runs on oil and gas, they're mistaken. We need oil and gas, but our civilization, electrons moving around. Okay, in other words, if you get rid of the electrons, in other words, if you break down all the electronic systems, all the oil and gas in the world will not stop you from basically dying. I mean, everything falls apart, civilization goes. And so if you could drop the cost of moving an electron by even 50%, and if you could do it without polluting the atmosphere, that is a major paradigm shift. It's not free energy. Free energy is an illusion. There will never be free energy, but there could be really cheap energy and non-polluting energy. And if any of that is embedded there, we need to know what the progress they've made there. And if they haven't it, we need a disclosure event, and we need these vehicles and the tech associated with them available to several 100,000 scientists who don't have currently classified access. All right, because 1,000 is better than 1. Okay, so that is the way to look at the technology situation. Now, in general, the idea of advanced tech from ET origin is still a very legitimate idea, because there's still the matter of open contact. I believe disclosure is the predicate to open contact. That is not somebody taking you out of your bedroom at 2 a.m. It is communications between ETs and human authorities, and that is being actually acknowledged and reported. So we know what they're saying to us, and we know what we're saying to them, and there is discussions about whatever going on. In open contact, the idea of technology exchange becomes a viable possibility. And when it comes to technology exchange, there's interesting considerations. The most important one, and the one that is most easily, I think, graspable, is genetics. We know from the contactee research that the ETs, one or more of the species, are intimately involved in genetic work with human beings, and their capabilities seem to be quite impressive. That should not shock anybody. Imagine where we would be, given where we are with respect to genetic technology and so forth, and hybridization, and the CRISPR. Now imagine another 500 years, where would we be? And so I think it's clear the ETs have extraordinary genetic tech. If that is true, that's kind of cool, because almost all disease has a connection to genetics or to cell structure and biological processes. If they understand these at 3 or 4 levels above us, one might very much conclude there isn't a disease we have that they could not provide the answer to. And thus we could start moving to eliminating diseases as a major factor. Now, the tech component of this is kind of cool, and it is in play, like many things we talk about with respect to ETs, because of science fiction. And the particular movie I am referring to is Elysium. All right, this is a very cool movie. Elysium is about a future dysfunctional world where the ultra wealthy have now relocated to a vast orbiting space station or space city. All right, and they have everything they need. They have all kinds of wonderful tech, and down below everybody's screwed. And a lot of stuff takes place, and ultimately there is a change in this status. But at the center of this movie is a very powerful idea. It is simply a bed. You see these things in movies all the time. They turn up in various ways. We actually have things sort of like this. But this is a bed, advanced tech. You put somebody in it. It diagnoses whatever is wrong with them, and it fixes right there. And at the end of the movie, they're able to change some software that makes everybody on Earth, all the billions, also citizens of this space city. And that entitles them to access to these machines. And all of these shuttles start flying out by the thousands to bring these machines down so these people could get healed. And that caught the imagination of people. And I get it. Does that mean we have those in our head? No, it doesn't mean that at all. Are we close to that tech? No, we're not. However, it is not an unreasonable thing that a post-open contact situation, that kind of technology could emerge from our friends, our new friends, and that would be a game changer, right? In other words, they have the technology to alter genes, to eliminate diseases starting and developing. They may have the technology to cure those that do develop, and this kind of stuff. That would change our world into another place altogether. And then, given their advanced biology, what I call biology, their biology and the human, or rather life sciences, I'm guessing they have some really good birth control tech. The kind of birth control, it's cheap, it's simple, it's absolutely safe, and you can just get it out everywhere, and we can start bringing the population down by reducing 2 generations to one child families with whatever incentives is needed. 2 generations of that, the population drops to 4 billion, and we have a whole different world here, all right? And they would have that tech. We have tech in that zone, but it's not good enough, but it's not bad. But mostly politics is awful, and so there are political decisions being made that will take us to 10 billion, and the people making those decisions will probably be dead by then and won't have to suffer what it's like to be on a planet with 10 billion people, all right? So screw them. Let's deal with this. But we could develop worldwide birth control policies and move towards a 200 nation agreed one child policy without having extraordinary higher level birth control technology. What we have isn't bad. But it's going to take something, like that worldview change and something dramatic, like disclosure to get people in the right frame of mind, where they're going, 10 billion people is bad, 4 billion people is good. And if you can do it without taking anybody's life away, without really interfering with people's lives, other than focusing on one-child families for 2 generations, it's fair, it's just, it's generally equal, and it's the solution. So that just gives you a glimpse of what's possible.
Right.
And
Do you think that they're here already among us and we don't realize it?
One of the great questions. There are reasons why this is very, very tricky. And it gets to one of my most important ideas that I like to put out, modestly. It goes like this. And it's all, I don't know. There is a series that just ran. It's True Detective, year 4. Jodie Foster was fantastic. The cinematography was great. Some people didn't like it. I don't care. It's fantastic. I love it. Okay. And in the film, and she's a hard-nosed detective. There's several instances where, and this is not unusual. It's happened in other shows. It's all about, if you want to solve a problem, it's about asking the right questions. If you don't ask the right questions, you don't gotta go. And so the kid would ask her a wrong question. Ask another. And so this is true in all things, really. What are the right questions? So one of the questions that doesn't get asked enough is, why are the particular ETs engaging us? Why is it them as not opposed to a whole other group? I mean, those who were saying we're not alone, those who were saying we're the only species in the universe, have finally, some of them have become convinced that yes, no, we do have 4 or 5 other visitors. But then, because it's human nature, they go, but those are the only 4 others in the universe. There's just 5, and that's not the case. In our galaxy, there are thousands upon tens of thousands of various civilizations, and many of which are starfaring. So, so with all those possibilities, why this group? Well, if you go online and search the imagery for the, quote, ETs, the most common groups, most of which all comes from contactees. They draw them, they paint them, whatever. In other words, just firsthand accounts. They don't take pictures because the ETs make sure you forget to bring your camera, or if you bring it, you forget to pull it out, whatever. But they can paint them from their memory. And when you look, here's what you see. Reptilians. Why are they called reptilians? Because they look like reptiles. And why do they look like reptiles? Because they look like the reptiles on our planet, current and past. So if that is the case, I would assert the reason for that is these reptilians, sentient reptilians, spacefaring, actually contain human origin DNA from reptilian species. Okay? In other words, they're genetically connected to the planet. It may go back at 10,000 years, 8,000, 200, doesn't matter. They're genetically connected to the planet. And another, the mantis, all right, insectoids, the mantis. Why do they call them that? Because they look like an insect. Well, why do they look like an insect? Because we have insects that look like them. I would suggest that the reason they look like that is that they are a sentient insectoid entity that has insect DNA that came from our planet sometime in the past. Okay? All right, let's continue. Then you've got the Nordics, or the Pleiadians, whatever the hell you want to call them. But basically, they're just very attractive, very human looking. In fact, basically, you cannot tell that they are non-human. Right now, you might if you did an autopsy, but you can't tell. Why is that? Well, because obviously they contain a great deal of human DNA. Okay? Obviously. This is common sense. Okay? But then you get to the Greys. Okay. Well, the Greys don't look human. They got 2 arms, 2 legs, 2 eyes, a nose, sort of, and a head. But other than that, they don't look human at all. And so, doesn't seem to be a genetic connection there. Except the evidence seems to point to the fact that the hybrid program that's underway involves the Greys, possibly all 3 types. They come 3 types: small, medium, large. So that makes them genetically connected to us, doesn't it? So my premise is this: that what is happening right now on this planet is extremely important. it has been, well, 12,000 years, if not 300,000 years in the making. It is leading to formal confirmation of the that we're not alone, as well as open engagement with these ETs, and that the ETs that are here are specifically here because of genetic connection to our planet. In other words, it's a homecoming. It's like there's a big wedding coming, and so the relatives are the ones that come to the wedding, right? Yeah, the relatives, that groom, parents. So these are connected to us. It is a homecoming. That is why they are here. Okay, so with that as a premise, let's start. A preface, rather. Look, the Pleiadians, or the Nordics as they're called, could live among us. But still, a little problematic. Because if they're living amongst us, some of them are going to get hit by a car, whatever, and just die. And they're going to get autopsy. And it's hard for me to imagine that a strict autopsy is not going to pick up that, well, these look like humans, but there's some serious differences here, right? And so I don't think so. I don't think they live among us, because that would be a problem. Unless they are absolutely identical to us, except they've got much better brains, in which case the autopsy would turn that up. And so I'm going, they don't live amongst us, right? I'm pretty sure that reptilians don't live amongst us. But again, sci-fi, which is probably affects our perception on this more than the facts, more than the science that we have. I get that. Shapeshifters. You gotta love shapeshifters. If you're writing sci-fi, you need time travel, portals, and shapeshifters, and you can write anything you want. People will buy it. So this idea they can shapeshift, I don't think so. But there's two kinds of, quote, shapeshifting. One is illusion, and the other is actual physical manipulation of matter. Now, we already know from contactees that they can implant visions in our head, or images in our head that are not what we see. And that's where the owl just come up, owls and cats and so forth. But they can also just anything. And so if they want you to see an owl, you see an owl. And so if you're a reptilian, but you have that ability, and somebody's in your presence, you make them see a human. Okay? And thus, they're not really shape-shifting. They're simply using some significant mental capabilities we don't have. But some people would view it as shape-shifting, meaning it's not that they're now making you see a human when it was a reptilian. They just shape-shifted from a reptilian to a human. And all I'm saying is shape-shifting is tricky. There are some octopi who have the ability to do some amazing stuff. There is no question. They are able to adapt their skin and texture and everything else to look like an array of background fauna, right? Flora, rather. It's impressive. And so is it possible that an ET, even a gray or reptilian, has the ability to simply, their whole skin and everything else simply changes and looks like a human? No. But what the octopi are doing is they're mimicking a background so you can't see them. This would be literally changing into something completely different. The background is irrelevant. It's a challenge. I'm not convinced. I don't think so. I have had some stories told me, though, by some people that were quite persuasive that I simply couldn't dismiss. But even then, what they told me, it could have easily been explained by mental power, not by physical change. All right? So, where are we now? The ETs are not living amongst us. Now, but there is one other consideration. They've got bases here. Lots of them. They have to. I mean, they could be operating from another planet, but there would be thousands of craft coming and going all the time. They could be operating on the far side of the moon, but we've been going around the moon, seeing all sides of it. It could be underground, and they could be coming out of there. But frankly, with the tech they have, they can operate from here. And I think the general consensus is pretty clear. There's very few researchers I know that don't accept the fact they have bases here. And they have extraordinary technology, so their bases are virtually, you cannot get to them, right? They're not, they're not hiding out in an empty mall somewhere, in Schenectady, New York. We think bases are under mountains and under the seabed. So if you've got a huge base under the seabed, which has got a mile of water on top of it, what do you think the chances are that we're going to be able to go find them? No way. Okay, if they're under a mountain, right? How are we going to get to them? We're going to spend $80 trillion to drill into a mountain and go down? No. So they seem to have bases under mountains and possibly under some areas that are just flat terrain and they're deep. We have underground bases. They're called DUMBs, deep underground military bases. We have the drilling machines to make them. We've had it for some time. You don't see these drilling machines. It's amazing how you just never see them. And the reason you don't see lots of pictures of them, or at least they're not readily there, and the press never covers it, is because that is one of those secrets that the government wants cooperation with. They do not want lots of people understanding their digging ability, because if we understood it, the fact that they have these bases would become much more engaged and we'd be aware of it. These bases are incredibly valuable to them because it allows them to work in total secrecy, absolutely unhindered, no press, no anything, do whatever they want, and we've got lots of them. But the ETs have got better ones, and so if you believe that thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of ETs operating from bases on our planet, but still have the ability to come and go when they need to a home planet through star-to-star travel, is living amongst us, well, they're living amongst us, all right? But to me, that's not the same thing, but it's a big deal. It's a big deal.
Right.
And one last thing for those that are going, how do they do this? Well, they got some cool stuff. They can go through solid matter. The ETs can walk through your bedroom wall, which definitely gets people's attention. And maybe the fundamental basis for the whole concept of ghosts, right?
Right.
Ghosts have nothing but ETs walking through people's walls for thousands of years.
Right.
And so we know, we've seen their ships go into mountains. They don't just go in. They just go right in. Okay. So they're literally going through the mountain, I assume, all the way down into the base, and they don't disrupt the mountain. And people say, well, that seems like quite a trick. How can they possibly do it? Well, we don't have that science. We don't have that tech. We don't have the equations for it. But we do know enough to know why it's probable. And that is something that is written about. You can find it. We are very enamored with all the solid stuff around us, right? We bump into it and we sit things on it, and it's probably critical to our lives. And we call it matter. It's actually 99.9% nothing. Okay? There's really not hardly anything there. Why? All of that structure is not matter. It is the field that the matter creates, that creates it connects these little particles together, that creates a field that you cannot push against. If you had the ability to turn off the fields of all matter in a particular sector, so the electrons had no charge, the neutrons had no charge, neutrons obviously have no charge, protons have no charge, and so forth. Literally, the magnetic electric fields in an area, that stuff would just to the ground, you walk right through, okay? And then you turn it back on and stuff will reassemble itself. This is a little crude, but that's an idea. And if you can do it with a wall in somebody's bedroom, you can do it to a mountain. And so they're coming in a mountain, they simply turn those fields off, they go right through empty space, and then they turn the fields back on. And I think that's how they go through matter. And when you can do that, boy, you can go anywhere you want and do all kinds of things. You're not going to be bothered by anybody. And so you have that aspect to explain why there are so many ETs around, but they're not down at the Starbucks. Right. And I make a point of this because one of the roles of an activist is to help make things go where they need to go and try to eliminate unnecessary or invalid ideas that will hinder the process, create proper language, and so forth. And because of the huge amount of sci-fi that we consume, and that's wonderful. I mean, most people know about extraterrestrials through hundreds of sci-fi movies, very good movies, okay? Because of that, a lot of our ideas are not coming from the research on the ET phenomena as we know it on this planet. It's coming from the sci-fi movies, right? And this gets to be, a little bit tricky, right? And so, and what is the, I'm trying to think of the issue I was going to address. Again, they can go through matter, which makes it extremely easy to be where they want to be.
And okay, here it is. Sci-fi movies have come up with the idea of multi-dimension. In the older movies, they weren't really called dimensions, but whatever, get the idea. I mean, it's like something hidden. It's like right there. And then eventually dimensions came into play as a big deal. And of course, we've always talked about the 3 or 4 dimensions of our world, space and time, right? And so people said, okay, they're in a dimension right next to us. That's where they come from. And that's out there, and it's getting around. And it's not good. I don't like it. And I push back against it. Why? Because we do not have adequate evidence for that to confirm it. We do not have it. We've got some dimensionality, so multiple dimensions that turn up in the mathematics of some of our physics, particularly string theory, right? And there's a lot of, you can do some pretty sophisticated thinking about the world. You can kind of project that as a possibility. And once you get into quantum mechanics, almost anything is possible, it seems. And so it's in play. But I don't think it holds up. And why is that important for the activism? Telling people they're not alone, telling people that there's other entities, intelligent coming from other star systems, hanging out with us and doing things, upsets some people. I was like, I'm not down with this. I don't like this. Why don't they just stick in their planet and leave us alone? But they come down. They got stars and bases, and that's what it is. And some people are uncomfortable with that. A lot of people are not. But you tell people that, oh no, where they come from is that we live in a multi-dimensional universe. So when you sit down for Thanksgiving dinner, there's like 10 other civilizations having Thanksgiving dinner right next to you, but they're in a dimension you can't see them. However, the more advanced versions of these other dimensional beings are such that they can reach literally out of their dimension into your dimension and take all the dark meat from the platter and leave us with nothing but white meat for Thanksgiving. And that is scary stuff. You're basically telling people, yeah, the ETs are here, they're right next to you, but they're in another dimension. But don't get upset. Don't. Okay? No, that is not helping. That is making people more frightened about the reality of this unnecessarily, because I just don't think it's true. And let's continue. All right? Science fiction has given us time travel. Hey, it's simple. We know there is a past and a present and a future. Right? We are smart enough to know that. We're sensing enough. It's a very legitimate concept, though it's not nearly as straightforward as people think. The whole issue of time is actually really brutal, and we really like to know what we know what time is, but it's not what we think. It's not so tough. It's tough. Time is actually change. Time is change, and the time that we think of only exists because we are conscious and we can count, right? And so we have developed the ability to find repetitive change. So a clock is repetitive or systematic change. It always moves one tick, right? Okay. And there's things in nature that are repetitive. In other words, they repeat the same thing and then repeat it again. And quote, the time between those two things is the same. So we find something like that, or we make one like a clock, and then something's changed. Something moves from point A to point B. And while it's doing that, we count the ticks. And we go, oh, that took 12 seconds. And so that's time. No. You take the humans out of it, take the clocks away, take everything away, and all you've got is something moving from A to B. And nobody's counting how long it takes. That whole idea doesn't even exist. And one of the things we know about the universe, it is constantly changing. There is nothing that is not changing. Everything is moving. Nothing is absolutely still. Everything is moving, changing, atoms and everything else. It is an endless changing thing that conscious people can measure. We call that time. Okay? And if we go 4 clicks forward, we've gone 4 clicks from the present. And now the new present is 4 clicks, and the other 4 clicks back is the past. This is an artifact of human existence. Now, it gets more interesting.
What's next for you?
What now?
What's next for you?
What do you mean, what is this for you?
No, what's next for you? What do you have coming up?
me. Okay. I guess we're getting close to the end, aren't we? Yeah, we're running out of time. Okay, how about that? We're running out of time. That's cool. Anyway, I don't have to get time as possible, and it's even scarier than the basic explanation. And so I invite people to not invest much in it. What's next for me is this. One, Paradigm Research Group, which has been around for 28 years, is about to become an actual nonprofit shortly, with a board of directors and a 501c3 status, and we will be seeking tax-free donations so that Paradigm Research Group can really expand its activities because the post-disclosure world is coming. All right, that's about to happen. The Hollywood Disclosure Alliance is now 4 months old. It's growing quickly. It's like about 130 members. It is a nonprofit networking entity to bring together content creators in the film industry and other entertainment industries and the UAP people to make it easier for them to get together, create content, and get it right. All right, and also to make some money because everybody that I know is broke. Right? And so the HDA is doing that. We're starting to get some pretty well-known celebrities in the Hollywood world. Shirley MacLaine has joined. Thomas Jane, the actor, has joined. Dee Wallace, and we got a couple more. We also have top researchers. We could add many more UAP people, but we need to balance it with the film industry people. But as that grows, the other grows. We're looking to be at about 200 to 250 members in about 3 months, and also be a full ongoing funded nonprofit. So that's happening. The New Paradigm Institute is now fully formed. It's operational. They're holding significant events, and you can now contribute to the New Paradigm Institute. It will be a post-disclosure think tank with a very substantial board of directors and a very substantial group of advisors. I'm going to be speaking at the Contact in the Desert conference coming up May 30 to June 3. It will be another one of the great conferences. We had 1,200 last year. We're shooting for 3,000 this year. Be about 6 tracks, 65 speakers. Again, the Indian Wells Resort, south of Palm Springs. Gorgeous, beautiful. What can I say? It's incredible. Got a great room rate. Got the rooms through the website, contactinthedesert.com. All right. And you want to book those rooms immediately. You can buy the tickets later, but you got to get if you want to be in that hotel. It's called the hotel, right? We've reserved every single room in the hotel. And so that's coming up. I'm going to be very much active there. Panel, lectures, intensive, the whole 9 yards. And look forward to having you join me. Check the website, contactinthedesert.com. And you can see the entire list of speakers, though the schedule is not up yet, and the panels have not been fully assigned, but it's a beautiful site and indicative of what to expect. That's a lot. Let's see, anything else? There's some other conferences that are coming. MUFON has one. I need to update my conference list, and I will, and you can see what's coming up, because there will be a number of conferences this year. And also, lastly, for those of you that are still struggling to understand what's going on, and you're getting your stuff from the odd Twitter, tweet here, or the odd Facebook post or whatever, or occasional YouTube videos, and all the pieces are not adding up. Take advantage of my greatest accomplishment. Okay, ParadigmResearchGroup.org. Menu resources. Drop down. Print media archive. Flash page. Again, you get the print media archive. 15,000 articles triaged from 40,000 articles going back to 1947. The total number of articles have actually been done that are legitimate. It's probably more like 50, 60,000, but there's only so many I can link to. The number of articles is now the greatest it's ever been. It hit 1,800 last year, meaning the total number of articles last year was the greatest ever. Virtually less than 1% of these articles is in fact a debunking piece. The rest of them is legitimate coverage. And if you go, and there's 1 year for each. There's a page for each year, and so you can search by page. So if you want to just read all the New York Times articles, you just go to 2023 or 24. You put in search New York Times, and then it'll just drop you down. You just go read every one. Then you go to the next year, do the same thing. So you could literally go through 10 years of New York Times articles very quickly. You can read them all. If you go there and take advantage of this, you will discover that our journalists, the mainstream press, and some what I call them alternative press, but other press that are still substantive, have pretty much described everything that's been happening. They haven't investigated. They haven't gone looking for underground bases and stuff. No, But everything that's been going on that is in the public domain, they have covered, and they've covered it relatively well. And so it's all there. And so you could just read, maybe 25 to 40 articles from each of the last 4 years. You will suddenly have a much better idea what's going on. And you'll feel less stressed out. So there you
Absolutely. Go. How can people find you?
ParadigmResearchGroup.org. You can subscribe to my email or list up in the upper left corner. There's another link in the middle of the page. It's a constant contact list. My email is there. It's prg@ParadigmResearchGroup.org. And my phone number is listed. You can text me. So I've always been available, and that's how you can find me. And I also have a page in the About section. It's PRG's media coverage. And so if you go into the menu About, scroll in the drop down, hit the media coverage, it's about 600 articles over the last 28 years have been written about PRG and me. Some of them are extensive, some of them are less extensive, but it'll give you a picture that PRG's work has been well covered. And the same to be said for many other groups. We have gotten the press, but the truth embargo has ensured the press would just go so far. But where they have gone is a lot. Most people don't have the time to read those things, so they continue to just kind of float through life, not quite sure what the hell's going on and wishing they knew more. That's the government's fault. But there is a huge movement to now bring all of that to them, and they will soon know the truth about this issue.
Fantastic. It's always fun to have you on. I learn so much every time I have you on.
Thank you, dear. I appreciate it. I am a California boy, born there, and I now have a place there as well as D.C. I've lived in many parts of California, and I know it's all haunted. But they're good ghosts. They're good progressive ghosts doing the right thing. That's what I think.
That's what's cool. Well, thank you so much, Stephen. I appreciate it, and maybe we'll get you back on once all this stuff starts coming to light.
Absolutely. There's plenty coming, and I'm happy to come and chat.
All right, sir. You have a great rest of your evening.
Thank you, dear. Bye.
All right, bye-bye. Okay, we always learn a lot when he's on. I love having him on. He's just full of information. I love it, love it, love it. Tomorrow we're going to kind of stay in the same vein of disclosure. Glenn Steckling is going to be with us. He's going to be talking about ETs and how they've been displayed by Hollywood, and we're also going to be talking about the possible contact with the various presidents that the ETs may have had over the years. But anyway, I'm going to bug out of here. I have to teach a class, so I will be here tomorrow at 6:30 p.m. Pacific, usual time. Also, to remind you guys, check out the California Haunts Paranormal Investigation Team meetup. I am going to be teaching a psychic development class on March 9th. And so if you guys are March 10th. So if you guys are interested in learning about your psychic abilities, check it out. Okay? Check it out. Sign up and we'll do it. I have 9 spots open for that class. So check it out. All right, I'll see you guys tomorrow at 6:30 p.m. Pacific with Glenn Steckling. Have a great evening.